And I think that the catalyst for this will be, again, a gold-backed reserve currency. And it won't be a yuan. The Chinese do not want a yuan.
Let's head over to the UK with Talking Gold and the one and only Mr. Andrew Maguire and Dr. Stephen Leeb. Over to you.
Thanks so much, Shane. And Stephen, it's just a real privilege to be with you today. And I really look forward to spending a little time. We never have enough time for these things, but a little time. And really, in particular, maybe because we have gold and silver in our hearts here, maybe we revolve a little bit about the gold and silver. But look at today. Look what's happening today. We've parachuted you in on a day when we have a major geopolitical event. Can you give us your thoughts on what do you see happening today? What are the drivers?
Well, I mean, I think the drivers are. I mean, the major driver, I think, is, I mean, I hate to say this, I think it's United States policy. And Andrew, when we went off the gold standard in the early 70s, basically we had all the money in the world, literally, to spend. I mean, it took a while for us to spend so much that it's now become a critical issue. But if you look at the Fed balance sheet, $9 trillion is an awfully big number. And basically, my thinking is you can't be free if you have no discipline and no real regard and cohesion in your society. And we've become a society that is basically, we've gone downhill. I don't know how else to put it. I hate to say that. I mean, I really do about America. And one reason I do say it is that I think we could still come back. But what you're seeing today is what are the results? And basically, this is all about scarce commodities.
The U.S. is kind of not looking very strong right now after Afghanistan, spreading itself out thinly. We see Russia testing them out in Syria, in the South China Sea, spreading them out thin. I mean, and all this condemnation that's going on now, when you think, and we talked about this just before we started the show, Putin came out just the other day and said, well, actually, I haven't ever published this before, but we wanted to join NATO, and Clinton shut us down. Any thoughts on that?
I think we're going to have to learn a lesson here, Andrew, and I fear that the United States is going to have to take a big step backwards in order to move forward again. And I think that the catalyst for this will be, again, a gold-backed reserve currency. And it won't be a yuan. The Chinese do not want a yuan. And I get this from reading a paper that was written by the head of the PBOC. I can't pronounce his name. I'm terrible with language. But he was regarded as one of the brightest and best in China. He wrote a white paper right in 2009 and said the business of having a sovereign currency also being a reserve currency is crazy. And he pointed to the SDRs as an example of what could have served, what could have come out of Bretton Woods, and what should have come out of Bretton Woods. And if you read very closely, he basically is arguing for a gold-backed basket of currencies, but he doesn't mention gold by name. But obviously you can't back, in a world of where you have commodity shortages, which is really what we have today, and I can talk a little bit about that too, dramatic commodity shortages across the board. You can't back a currency with something that's going to run into short supply. What are we going to back the currency with? Copper? As we see, we run out of what sense does that make? No, gold is truly unique in the sense that it's prized not for its industrial uses, which has some, but all those can be substituted, but it's prized for its beauty. And I'll let the philosophers decide why that's the case. The philosophers and the economists can come together. Is that a platonic issue, or is it an issue that we're just used to gold as a currency? I have no idea. I mean, that enters religious, philosophical, economic realm. I just know it's true. Gold has been prized for thousands, literally thousands of years for its beauty, not the fact that as silver too should be a massive participant, because that's going to be scarce supply. We're not going to have widespread solar technologies without using silver. I mean, photovoltaics, you can't, they can, what they call it, I forget the exact word, but you can cut down on the amount of silver that you use, but the amount of solar voltaics you're going to need in order to get this world into a position where it can be sustainable, we're going to have a devil of a time doing that, because there's just not that much silver combined its monetary value. And if you believe the world is going to continue to grow, silver could actually do better than gold, although I don't know. I mean, when I talk about this stuff, I get carried away because there's such frustration when I think about what this country did and how it gave it all up. Andrew, all the technologies today that China has, and in many cases has improved on, we created those technologies. They came out of Bell Labs. They came out of AT&T, which was a government-controlled monopoly in communications that was broken up. Now, okay, I understand breaking up something that's a threat to competition, but I don't understand not protecting Bell Labs. What we did is we just sort of shoved Bell Labs into the weakest of the companies that we broke up, and that was Lucent. Lucent went bankrupt and Bell Labs became a shadow of itself. Bell Labs that created the internet, created the laser, created the transistor. Why do I forget about the transistor, which is the basis of everything? And for a long time, the company, the chairmans that ran Intel, the bosses of Intel were descendants, work descendants of Shockley. They either worked for somebody who worked for Shockley. He was one of the inventors of the transistor. And then once Grove left Intel, the next person in was somebody who had nothing to do. And that's when Intel lost its mojo. I mean, it was as dominant in its day, and more dominant than Taiwan Semiconductor. And I'm not talking years ago. I'm talking, probably at the beginning of the century, or certainly in the late 1980s, everything was Intel. Nothing was advanced micro devices. It was like sort of existed to prevent Intel from becoming a monopoly. That's why today advanced micro devices, technologically speaking, is ahead of Intel. I mean, how does this happen? How do we allow this kind of thing to happen? We allow it because we become obsessed with money and obsessed with everything that we can do and how strong and powerful we are. And that leads to complacency, total, utter complacency. And ironically, the values that we share and what we're told that we want to protect by Biden in his speech last night, which is freedom and virtue. These are exactly the values that we're losing as a result of this overwhelming complacency that we have in this country right now. We have to get this stuff back. Americans, if left to their own devices, are an extraordinarily creative folks, as are the British. I mean, the number of people, Maxwell, you can go back and the West basically founded modern technology. And the East basically now has, I can't say they've completely taken over, but they sure are on their way to doing it. And the only way we can get it back is to discipline ourselves, and we have a chance.